Hello and welcome to Dynamo 20. We're in our 7th year, but this conference is going to have a very different feel because we have gone entirely digital. If there's one place that should be happening in the midst of COVID, it's right here at Dynamo. We're all about showcasing exactly what the Northeast's tech sector can do. And even though we are virtual this year, we'll still do the same high quality stuff, still learning from the best, still joining together. And in fact, the theme of this conference is collaborating for success. So what better time to do it than now? I hope you're all safe and well. These are indeed, well, they're very strange times, aren't they? To introduce myself, I'm Charlie Charlton. I'm a senior journalist with the BBC, and COVID's brought a whole raft of surprising stories to the surface. I've been talking with people who are undergoing the most extreme stress, working frontline in care homes, in hospitals, handling thousands of calls over these past few months from families who are grieving or struggling to pay the bills because their work has all but disappeared. So if you or any of your loved ones is going through this, our thoughts are with you. Genuinely, please know that you're not alone. And that actually is where the flip side of the surprising stories have emerged. People who've somehow been able to see a way to help others, to work together. You've got 3D printers in schools being used to make PPE, contact centres switching to home working overnight to provide GP helplines, online payments going into overdrive as people went into lockdown. Technology really has come to the rescue. And behind all of that is people. People in the Northeast, just like you, using your creativity, your innovation to, in some cases, save lives. And in others, save jobs, save the economy. Now, this is no mean feat, and it happened with very little warning and a lot of spirit against the odds. So if you've been on this unseen front line, as I'm calling it, we thank you. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Communication is my livelihood, and it's now feeling and looking very different. We've got untamed hair. You might have been the victim of the clippers, actually. Sorry to my household for that one. We are doing this virtually today to keep our community safe. The thing is, it's actually become our most popular conference. Life is changing so fast. Red tape's being bundled up and stuffed in a corner to make room for people who want to take action now. So it's important to hear what their ideas are and how they've put them into action, or what's still holding things up maybe. So you could be the solution. And this is what's exciting. It's exciting to think about what the Northeast's digital future could look like. Now, last year's conference blew me away. I still use the notes that I took in those lecture rooms at Sunderland University. I got them here. They're still here. They're still here. Very hard for politicians to argue against the people who are their statistics, I've worked out. They're the experts, after all. People like Dr. Anne-Marie Mafferdon, what an incredible woman, pointing out a lot of things, including that you don't need to be dead, white and male to work in STEM. And looking at today's running order, I've got my notebook at the ready, got my pen, still old school. There's going to be a lot of inspiration. So what's in store and how do you see the action? We're going to start with functionality. So if you are on a Windows machine, please use Chrome or Firefox. It's the most compatible. If you're on a Mac, please use Chrome, Firefox or Safari browsers. The Hop-In platform. It's got 5 main areas. The stage, where we are right now, is where we'll host all the plenary sessions and some of the breakout sessions. Then if you look down the left-hand side of your screen, you'll see the sessions icon. That's where the rest of the breakouts will be. Networking is where we're going to be having speed networking from 12 till 12:45, and then from just after 3 o'clock till just after 3:30. These are real times. We're virtual. We can keep to a clock, or we should do. Expo is where you're going to find the virtual exhibitor hall. That's the showcase area for our bite-size and kilobyte members, with loads of innovative products and services. Really interesting stuff there. And just as if we were at a physical conference, it's up to you where you go and who you listen to on Hopin. Instead of people meeting you on corridors and pointing out where the side rooms are, there are wayfinding tools and signs to help you get around. So if you don't know where to go, you don't know what session's next, all you need to do is head to the reception area, and there's a full list there. The main thing really about these conferences is getting the chance to catch up with people, isn't it? So you can chat with anyone anytime today. You use the event chat tab, it's on the right of your screen. You can chat within your session group. And if you want to catch up with someone in particular that you know is at Dynamo 20, all you need to do is click on people and then send them a direct message. A few of the highlights, just a few from the main stage for you. Today's first keynote speech is from internationally renowned Nick Palmarini. He's a man who'll give us insight into all our futures. If you've had the chance to catch him speaking before, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. He's the director of the National Innovation Centre for Aging. That's coming up very shortly, actually, at 9:25. At 11:15, it's a crucial panel session called Responding to the COVID-19 Pandemic. That looks at health, finances, the environment, all through a brand new digital lens. The next panel session is at 12:45. That's about the future of tech education. So what will our children's worlds look like? Then at 1:30 this afternoon, it's time for the keynote speech from Aaron Harris. He's the Chief Technology Officer Global of Sage, and he's going to be speaking to us over in the US. Then at 5:15, it's your chance to see Blame It on the Algorithm. It's the brilliant Edinburgh Fringe show from Dr. Mari Aitken. And like all the speakers you'll hear today, she's an expert in her field, research using health data. And she likes to bring up new ideas, get the discussion going. So join in with all of them. Everyone wants to know what you think. So use the hashtag Dynamo20 and tag the @Dynamo Northeast account. Thank you for joining us today. And also a big thank you to our partners for making today happen. Sage, the Institute of Coding at Newcastle University, and thank you to the European Regional Development Fund. We've had some support from the Innovation Super Network. So, are you sitting comfortably? Is the washing machine off? Does the toddler have enough Lego to play with? These are my questions. Have you paused that doc on Netflix? I know it's interesting, but the thing is it going to change the way you work? Is it going to change the way you live? Is it going to change the way you think? Because that is what is on our menu today. Let's get started with Lindsay Phillips from Sage. When he came to Sage as Executive Vice President of Product Delivery a few years ago, the company announced it as Sage hires international technology heavyweights. Wow. Well, he's had a big challenge these past few months. He's been at the coalface of the furlough process. Sage provides payroll software to half the UK's private sector. So how on earth did they manage to provide that support in such a short time, at such a crucial time? These are people's livelihoods, of course. Well, according to what I've been reading from Lindsay, it was all down to teamwork. So a perfect place to start then for Dynamo 20, collaborating for success.
Hi, and welcome to the Dynamo Conference 2020. I'm Lindsay Phillips, EVP of Product Engineering at Sage and Dynamo Advisory Board member. And I'm delighted to speak to you today. And what a very different event it's going to be. Compared to last year, very much a sign of the times. And it's representative of what the new normal looks like for many of us. I'm delighted that we've been able to make this a virtual conference format and not let the coronavirus pandemic that we've all navigated our way through, or tried to at least, for many months now, get in our way. For all of us, juggling personal and professional lives within the four walls of our homes has very quickly become the new norm. And for us at Sage, this involved mobilising over 3,000 colleagues from the office environment to their new home offices safely just within a matter of days. It's also involved setting up new communication vehicles so we could support our colleagues every step of the way through this change. It also meant reaching out to our millions of customers, the small and medium businesses that power this country, to check in on them and provide the support and insight they've needed whenever they've needed it. There is a common thread here, the one thing that's enabled us to support our thousands of colleagues and millions of business customers: collaboration. Without collaboration, we couldn't have got to where we are successfully. And what does collaboration look like at Sage over these last few weeks and months? Well, for many, it's meant reaching out to new teams, touching base more frequently, and recognizing the importance of our own and others' mental health in ways which we perhaps didn't think about before. For many, it also looked like different working hours, fitting in work around homeschooling, childcare, or supporting your other half, or helping neighbours with shopping. I think one of the biggest gaps we have is the loss of those random but crucially important touch points at the water cooler or the coffee break catch-ups that have all but disappeared. We've had to find new ways for colleagues to bump into each other instead, such as virtual meetups, virtual stand-ups, virtual coffee or wine, quizzes and competitions on TikTok. For customers, it's meant that our dev teams have been working to deliver solutions that would help our customers apply for the government job retention scheme to keep their businesses alive, working together under time and remote working pressures to develop emergency support tools to enable businesses to both understand and apply for the government funding that's available. It's also meant bringing together a team of marketeers, product experts and engineers to work on a content hub that will provide a brand new advice and support to help SMBs navigate through this new and quite challenging maze. It's also meant collaborating in new ways that we hadn't perhaps done before and being more agile and faster, using the full spectrum of technology or the full capabilities of an app you may just have skimmed the surface of before. Thinking about our communities, we couldn't go out and support them in our usual ways through the Sage Foundation, so rather than pausing, we turned volunteering on its head and brought the opportunities direct to our colleagues' home, virtually, so they could still support charities. We also used the power of our partnerships to be truly right by our customers' side. As they emerged into the new normal, we collaborated closely with HMRC to advise on the Job Retention Scheme portal to help ensure it was what this country's businesses needed. It meant setting up task forces with the likes of the CBI to help inform and support the implementation of new policies that would support business through this pandemic. It meant using our insight team to team up with organisations and cut through the confusion to deliver real value-adding support for businesses. And whilst these last few months have been enormously challenging for businesses, they have also shown that through collaboration, we're much stronger. And there's so much good to be taken from the collaboration I've seen during the last 12 weeks or so. I'm really proud of what our people and our customers have managed to achieve through collaboration. And from a North East point of view, the next steps are so important, and tech will undoubtedly play a huge part, more so than ever before. We really need to be focused on making the most of the innovation and insight we now have in our hands right in front of us. But it's not just about today. As many of you will know, I'm a passionate advocate of making sure the children and the future of this industry aren't forgotten in this region. And we need to make sure that we're all responsible for collaborating on our STEM agenda and creating the opportunities for our brilliant young people to experience and grow into tech, so they feel supported to be the technologists, engineers, or thinkers of tomorrow, no matter who they are. The opportunity is ours, all of us at this conference, to take advantage and work together on us in a spirit of collaboration for success. So that's it from me. We're still at early stages of the unlock, so please stay safe. There's some fantastic content coming at the conference, so I hope you enjoy it and have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you to Lindsay Phillips there from Sage. There were a few things that I picked out. I mean, moving more than 3,000 colleagues from offices to homes in just a few days is wow. That just shows the will of people and the ability of tech when you want to make it happen. Great stuff. And collaboration, the list that he had of collaboration between colleagues, between different teams, different companies in the government, schools and colleges, and then also like the Sage Foundation collaboration with charities. It's what we need right now, isn't it? So thank you to Lindsay. Now to the man who co-founded Dynamo after spotting the huge potential of our region's digital industries. Now, that was 7 years ago. So little did he know that coming down the tracks was a pandemic that would put our tech sector at the forefront of the Northeast's economic recovery. There are Dynamo members watching right now who've been actively involved in the fight against the virus. Others are taking the opportunity to grow, coming up with all sorts of digital solutions for our new normal. So it's time to shout about what we can do. Here's Charlie Hoult.
Hello and welcome to Dynamo 20, the now online conference for the tech sector in the region. My name is Charlie Hoult and I am the chair and co-founder of Dynamo. And it's great to welcome you to this session. It's ironic that early in March this year, we were writing a press release to say that the region's tech sector was totally in boom, with 250 plus jobs having been announced in the first quarter. Those were for companies like VisualSoft, Hive, Active Technology, Single Track, Opencast, Sage Software. That press release never went out. Instead, we've had the COVID wobbles and all of the decimation of the economy. But it's brilliant to see that the tech sector itself, and not least in the region, has shown huge resilience to the challenges. And in fact, in May, we put out a press release acknowledging all of that with the work in region, but is significant across the nation in HMRC, the Business Services Authority, NHS, trickles of interest in the uptick in the economy from people like North, the marine insurance players who are based here. So the region is still booming with technology, and a lot of the facets of COVID have been that the trends that have been ongoing and underlying in the last few years have only accelerated in industry, not least digital transformation. So we've been busier than ever. I'm sure you have too. So it's great that you're taking the time out to listen to us today and hear from people in the region. I see my role as the chair of Dynamo to push forward the mission to grow the Northeast IT economy through collaboration, innovation, skills, and noise, cheerleading about the region and the way that tech is transforming us as a hotspot in a number of sectors. We have focused particularly, although we're wide-ranging in the work we've done around skills and regional cheerleading, in a number of what we call cluster areas, specialist sub-niches, micro-niches, where the region has particular excellence and opportunity that can be strong and differentiate us on a national and international level, because every region these days with 2 million people wants to say they're a tech hotspot. Well, we've been there for a number of years and we've niched down, and we're really focused on making the agglomeration benefits, as the textbooks call it, the connections between those people in these specific niche sectors, and how we can foster that and champion that regionally, help with the skills supply chain, directing traffic across clusters into the national and international economies. We particularly concentrate on connected construction, fintech, cybersecurity, health cluster that we've got, service delivery centres, and not least software and data. We also see emerging clusters around the likes of a number of areas, advanced manufacturing, fintech, and the like, that rural economy, leisure, things that we can see are important transitions in the region, and that where we've got some experts and excellence. This conference, as it goes ahead, you'll see talk of the COVID crisis. We all need to share and understand where it's going to take us to the next normal. There's a lot of topic areas around talent, diversity and inclusion, around skills, and then some niche topics around artificial intelligence or virtual reality. These, by and large, are conference sessions that have been submitted to us, and thanks to the local players in the region who have stepped up and put together talks, which we're going to be hearing in the rest of the sessions today on this exciting platform, which also allows us to drop in and out of networking and some kind of virtual trade show stuff. I'm excited myself to see how online replicates what we were used to do face-to-face in the 6 or 7 years that we've been doing it for Dynamo. Not least, and thanks to everyone who has helped, if you want to get involved in the clusters and in suggesting other areas that would be relevant for Dynamo to cover to grow our region's tech economy, I refer to the words of John F. Kennedy: ask not what America can do for you, but what you can do for America. The same is true for Dynamo. We're a volunteer-led organisation funded by our members and supported by partnerships across the region's tech sector. But if you'd like to get involved, do please tap up our engagement managers who are working tirelessly. We have had some European Regional Development Funding, ERDF EU funding, which has multiplied the support we've had elsewhere in the region, and that's been able to give us the money to grow our own staff base. Those in the team can help you to get more involved and direct the traffic to efforts of where we're active in the clusters and beyond. So do get involved if you have a bit of space in your head, a bit of space in your diary to push forward this regional agenda. And I hope you'll see what's active in all of that in the sessions ahead. And I look forward to catching up with you over the day. Enjoy it very much. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Charlie. It's worth saying that Dynamo's already initiated around £100 million in projects, so it's time to grow that now. Feed the green shoots in this new world. It'll be interesting to see which companies and jobs actually set their roots down here for the future and for our future. And talking of the passage of time, let's hear from an extraordinary speaker, and I don't say that lightly. The TEDx talk that he gave on ageism really could change the way you think and act. It did for me. He raised issues that made me feel uncomfortable, like when we talk about tech and innovation. Be honest, you automatically think of young. Me too. And yet, he says, if you look at patents over the last 10 years, most of them are registered by people aged between 45 and 65. So why not bridge that gap between the generations, work together and work better, especially at a time like this? We've all had a taste of the isolation that can have such deep and long-lasting effects on older and elderly people. So take a moment to really take stock with the director of the National Innovation Centre for Aging. It's Nick Palmarini.
Good morning and welcome to Dynamo 20. When I agreed to speak at this event, the world had not yet entered the terrible spiral we all know. When I decided to talk at Dynamo 20, I had in mind to tell you a story of what challenges, but above all, what opportunities and what possibilities concern aging and longevity. And I can assure you that the hardest thing was to think about what another story was worth telling you today. Then I let the emotion flow. I let the images of pain, of death in solitude, in a house or in a nursing home, perhaps the most terrible death imaginable, slowly settle down at the bottom of my soul. I tried to look at what happened to us with a sharp mind and above all, what happened to the older adults, the people who are closest to my heart, and we are at the core at the work we do at the National Innovation Centre for Aging here in Newcastle. I was saying, I look at what happened and I realized that I wanted to talk to you about today, after all, was not so different from what I wanted to say a few months ago, because the story is the same. Only the brutality of the global pandemic has confused me for a moment. Or rather, maybe it helped me clear it up. Because one thing a crisis helps to do is to bring out the extremes, crudely and unequivocally. The best and the worst things, like our extraordinary ability to make ourselves available to others when necessary, or our innermost fears or our most atavistic feelings. Remove all the superstructures, the social convention, the the respect for others, then those are us. This is the society that we have created and built. And after all, the pandemic put us in the present situation without having thought very much until recently about the kind of world we are creating. A world that a year ago, six months ago, or today had and has the same prejudice toward age, one of the most deeply rooted unconscious biases of our society. It is called ageism, and it is a discrimination on a par with racism and sexism, but it's even more sneaky because it affects all of us, and it's difficult to recognize because it's part of our background and our everyday life. The pandemic, as I said, had brought to the surface in a violent and evident way something that was long before, has always been there. And as soon as the pandemic hit us, it took us very quickly to write an equation like instead old equal vulnerable equal expandable. With the pandemic, there's been a parallel outbreak of ageism, it's evident. What we have seen in public discourse was and is an increasing portrayal of those over the ages of 70 as being all alike with regard to being helpless, frail, and unable to contribute to the society. These views are being spread by social media, the press, public announcement, government officials throughout the world, which also led us to believe that this virus was only about the old people, and we realized that it wasn't. By widening the divisions between young and old, also allowing younger people to direct their anger about the situation towards older adults who are portrayed as the outgroup, the others. But this is a sum-zero game. This age division and negative portrayal of older adults and aging may affect the younger people aging process as they too internalize negative messages about old aging and aging in the context of the current pandemic. Not only that, the pandemic also confronted us with a fundamental ethical question that we pretended not to see. According to what criteria should we decide to save in the face of an emergency? Ethical triage, even in crisis care, should focus on the individual's medical condition, not the sociological category. Bias in triage decision is a worldwide danger to a misconception of vulnerability related to age. In the same way, the pandemic has pointed out to us that, guess what? Perhaps the older adults are not automatically vulnerable, but even live longer than we knew. And so in the news, we found these headlines so striking of a 90 or 100 years old that they have survived COVID and happily went back home. But where, after all, is the exceptionality, if not hidden in our prejudice of before, the old, vulnerable, expendable equation, which is always there in the backfire of our mind? This is my dad. He's 90 years old. He's a cardiologist. And 3 weeks ago, as soon as the peak in Italy passed, he came back to help those who were typically 20, 30, 40, 60 years younger than him. Living long is nothing new. Of course, medicine and research have made an amazing progress, and for the last half century, life expectancies has been continuous to increase steadily by 2 years each decade. It is almost if we're gained an extra 20% free for every decade we have lived. Admittedly, we have to revise the life expectancy estimates after the carnage of these 4 months, when recent study states that in the first part of 2020, COVID-19 reduced the life expectancy of males living in the most affected Italian provinces by 5 to 8 years, and that of women by 3 to 6 years, which is impressive. Yet even when treatments were not existed and pandemics a rather ordinary event, someone like this gentleman still lived a respectable number of years, among other things producing the best of their intellect at a very late age. In other words, as Professor Kirk would say, we're reaching old age more and more in generally better health. At the same time, biology has established that there is almost certainly no fixed program for aging, which is caused instead by the lifelong accumulation of damage. It's becoming evident that the aging process is much more malleable than what we used to think. So it's very much up to us and our idea of society to imagine who and how we would like to be tomorrow. taking care of ourselves, but also of others. Because to give an example, situations such as loneliness and isolation, which perhaps affects young people more than older adults, have effects not so much only on our psyche, but on our physical condition too, increasing the risk of clinical dementia, increasing the risk of disability or cardiovascular disease, boosting the Alzheimer biomarkers, increasing stress and promoting depression and suicidal tendency. Isn't it maybe the time to reimagine a different society that is more inclusive and more respectful of the individuality of others? Because another thing I wanted to tell you 4 months ago is that we remain individuals, even when we are 70, 80, 90 years old. It's not that because we may have retired that we are all the same because of that fact alone. We remain the same, different and unique individuals that we were before, trust me. It is just no one seems to realize it, especially companies that continue to design products and services thinking that because we're a certain age, we need the same things, ultimately losing the vision and the perspective of our desires instead of our supposed needs. And here I would like to be very, very clear with the small, medium companies, with the marketing departments, with the communication agency. Pay attention, because if you want to speed up the recovery of business after this economic disaster, you will have to imagine new narratives and new proposals and new products and new services capable of affecting not only the demographic standard, which we all seem to strive continually, the 30 years old, the 40 years old, the millennials, but also the one that we have never considered, and that coincidentally is also the one who has the most economic availability in this situation. Barriers including inaccessible high streets, poorly designed products, age discriminatory attitudes mean people aged 75 and over are not spending their wealth. If these barriers were tackled, the additional spending could add an extra 2% to UK GDP, or 47 billions by 2040. This was a January 2020 prediction, and I think it's even more true today. Where are your plans to serve people like that, who are around you, but we keep ignoring? Is it a population that is waiting for new proposals and we're not reaching them? These new offerings will make them feel who they are and recognize their individuality and respect their diversity and uniqueness. If you add any doubts about the ability of this generation to use technology, take a look at the multi-continental intra-family calls on Zoom and check their capabilities and desires. And everything happened just a few weeks ago. Finally, the pandemic told us something I would have told you a few months ago anyway. In this world so smart, so advanced, so progressed, two fundamental things are still missing. Firstly, the ability to listen and harness the intelligence of this fantastic intellectual capital brought by the older adults and put it into circulation in society through companies as well. I want to point out to HR managers that they own an immense value contained in their organization, an aging workforce. Being able to exploit their knowledge by sharing it with other generations inside and outside their company could be one of the keys to success today and tomorrow. Secondly, a general lack of shared data, which is often locked within organizational or industry silos. We lack the intelligence to merge all this knowledge and to harness all the innovations that are already in place, replicate them, improve them, apply them to a changing society and evolving demography. Here I have just given you some example on how innovation of the historical moment can be applied to our daily life. We're facing a significant shift. If the explosion of mobile connectivity was the most significant technology shift of the early 21st century, the worldwide aging population is the most significant demographic shift, one with a major potential impact on all the sectors of the economy. An aging population creates a unique market with layered, diverse and evolving needs, but without quickly drawn boundaries or segments. While technology plays a crucial role in meeting these needs, it's just part of a much larger picture. We know it well, And this is what we are doing every day at the National Innovation Center for Aging. We call a process that it's defined as aging intelligence, a comprehensive, data-driven approach, leveraging a combination of human knowledge and experience, real-world applied research, and existing data. We're in the early days of a long journey, we know it. But the opportunities created by an aging population are tremendous, and the right approach is still coming into focus. Meeting the needs of millions of older adults will require new technologies, new partnerships, new ideas, new business models. In short, we need you to help us promote this new vision, including how we assess the needs and highlight the wants of this demographic, engage with its ecosystem, and create, develop, and deliver solutions destined for a new type of market. Join us, lend your voice to the dialogue, create new partnerships and innovations. Together we can build an aging intelligence. Now, more than ever, is the time to start. Thank you.
So, Nick Palmarini, hearing you speak, there's nobody like you, I don't feel. Yeah, that as well. I will say that the first time I saw your TEDx speech, I was really hoping that the translator had got all the words right. So, but I think having the experience you have, having all the data, and tied in with that, a key thing for me is communication. Communication between older generations, younger generations, and us as a society. I mean, the fact that ageism doesn't exist in barely any other languages other than English, surely that doesn't mean that only English-speaking nations are ageist, does it?
No. It's unfortunately it's global. Unfortunately, it's happening everywhere in the world. But it's even harder to recognize it if you are in a country which doesn't even have a word to define it. And that's why I think there's a lot of work that have to be done, because this is the classic, or probably the most strong unconscious bias we have. We make joke about people getting older. We treat them as a side of a society. And I guess COVID somehow showed us what is the state of the nation about ageism. We've seen this narrative that went through you're old, equal you're vulnerable, equal you're disposable, that came out like a flow, like a strong river that invaded all the social media pretty quickly. And that narrative is somehow a narrative which is in the back burner of the society. And again, COVID, just like, a spotlight, turned the light on, but it's ongoing, and it's ongoing globally. Then, as we were saying, you even have countries in which this word is not codified. So if you go somewhere and you just say, "Oh, you're ageist," people say, "What are you talking about?"
The danger of that narrative of aging, vulnerable, and therefore disposable, what impact can that have on people who are within that age group, do you think?
Well, I think it's somehow pushing people at the borders of the society automatically, because you think you're not fit for this society. You're not fit for this system of economy. You're not fit for this technology. You're not fit to be part of the discussion that is happening in all the layers, while you are yourself. And typically we tend to forget you're yourself as soon as you retire. Because if you think about retirement, it's a sort of a kind of a hurdle you overcome, and the day after you are part of a group, a societal group, and the day before you were an individual. You were targeted by marketing, you were targeted by commercials. The day after, you are like someone belonging to huge sea where all the fishes are the same, which I guess is one of the points that push us to feel we're not part of this society. And then if you're not part of the society, you have literally a chain reaction that then affect your health. So the point is that it's not just a matter of the narrative, a matter of communication, but what is the impact over myself as a societal group first, but then as an individual. So that as an individual, I literally feel that I'm not part of what's happening around me. And this could affect my health. And when I mean my health, We have proof and a lot of research about heart diseases or increasing of certain type of diseases generated by feeling set apart from the society.
I remember Michael Palin speaking out quite early on and just saying, listen, not everybody over the age of 70 is incapable of doing anything at all. I mean, he even was making the assumption that, you know, that there are great swathes of that group who could have been disposable, and he was within it, but fighting the, you know, look, we can still be creative. We still have worth. We're just older.
Yeah,
That's it.
I think that it's exactly that point. Also, there are, you know, some misnarrative. For example, this idea that the 70 today is just like the 60 of yesterday, which is wrong from a perspective. Why? Because those 10 years that you have between 60 and 70, it's your experience. So it's not like 70 are like the 60. 70s are the 70, which are different, but that 10 years are part of your experience that make who you are. And again, I've seen some interesting Instagram messages over the COVID, mainly from the younger generation. They were saying, oh, I don't count this year in my life. It's just like I didn't live it. So I'm still 25 instead of being 26. Because these 3 months or these 6 months or the 2020 as a year, I don't think about it because I didn't live it. Which is, I guess, one of the point. Yes, we lived it. And this is part of our experience. This is what makes us ourselves. The ripeness that it's around our progress of being who we are, and not necessarily because you're older, you're wiser. You could be fuller, you could be foolish in your 80s or 90s. There's no need to be explicitly wiser because you're older. You are who you are, and respecting who you are, I guess, is the key that we should have to start thinking about, as we're doing in some other discrimination. And we've seen what's happening again about racism or sexism. We didn't solve at all those discrimination, but at least we can recognize what's happening, and at least society can raise the hand and say, I don't agree, I'm not agreeing with what I see happening around race or sex. I think it's the time we also raise the hand about what's happening about aging.
You made a really interesting argument about baby boomers, whereby they were the very people who were driving this ageism, and yet now we're going to be the victims of it. So instead of being the victims of it, they might then start getting their eyes set on the youth of today being the problem.
Yeah, first of all, I must admit I'm a boomer, so I'm one of these parties. So I'm talking about in my interest. But the point is that you probably noticed that boomers are entering, obviously, in the so-called age space. So they're aging, entering in that stage of life. And clearly came out a sort of a narrative, maybe on the social media. I think it was 6 to 8 months ago, where a hashtag came out quite strongly on Twitter and on other social media, where the definition was a okay boomer, just like to say, hey, okay, guys, you've done your part. We don't want to deal with you anymore. And it's interesting how this thing is being translated in the okay zoomer today, because, oh, you discover you can do, you know, video calls thanks to COVID. So you become a zoomer, even if you didn't know what it was the day before. Point is, I guess, is related to the fact that we have a bad narrative over the media, and Professor Tom Sharp put it very clearly, when, for example, a narrative came out with Greta and the environment. Now, I think if you go back in what Greta is talking about, you don't see anywhere a sort of a claim against the older population. It's a claim against how we're treating the planet. But the narrative that came out on the media is just like, oh, old people do not care about the environment, and listen what is the bad narrative, because they're going to die. So the point is, yes, you have only 4 or 5 years of life, 10 years of life. Why you should care about the environment? So that the narrative is that, oh, you're old, you don't care. While it's absolutely not true. There are so many billions of examples. I don't have to defend how many people I just put some positive thoughts about what? About the people we love, our son, our grandson, humanity. So it's not a matter if I can take advantage of not about that. It's the matter of I am part of that. I am one of the generators. And one of the things that I guess we should also think about the boomers is how much things has been generated by the boomers. I just mentioned one.
The patent list is staggering.
Yeah, but also if you just two things. The first one is the patent list. And it's pretty normal because they were there in the 50s, in the 60s, where we're shaping the world today. But some inventions that we don't think about, GPS one, has been done obviously in the 50s by the boomers. And GPS is enabling every single application you use with your mobile phone, basically. And when you are so proud of using your Uber services or whatever Airbnb stuff and just saying, oh, I'm so cool because I'm using this technology, that technology come back from someone who use it and invented for different purposes. But nevertheless, it's something you not boomer, are using today. The second point is how many startups are created by older entrepreneurs. And if you see those startups that are succeeding the most are made by older entrepreneurs, not because they are better, but because obviously there is a combination of factors that it's made by something that we call experience that we tended to avoid. So you need creativity, innovation, new ideas, and experience bound together. By the way, you could be experienced in your 20s or super creative in your 90s, and it's something that we have to think about. But I guess the key word here is the cross-generational play, which is something that we should have to push and force inside the organization and the workplace. Because the workplace are aging, obviously, and the only way for organization to thrive, to become much more efficient over the changing market and answer to the question that crises like COVID are putting us, it's not to separate these demographic, it's just to put them together, take advantage of the two working together.
Let's talk about technology. A lot of us will have relatives who have suddenly leapt into new technologies, and for us as well, so they can actually see each other and not be isolated at a time like this, you know, doing FaceTime, doing Zoom calls, doing stuff they would have never considered before because they didn't have to. But then there are people who either don't have access to that or don't have those skills, and it's almost impossible to teach that at a distance. Where do you see technology being a help, and where do you see it being a hindrance as we age?
Well, I think that we are clearly evolving in a transition from the technology that helped us to interact with technology in a far more natural way. So the idea of the cognitive technologies, they are mimicking or allowing our cognitive capability to access to the technology are for sure the game changers. So if you think about the iPhone that introduced the touch screen over your phone, touch screen is a very old technology, but has become so widely popular when we could start, physically interact with your finger instead of using a keyboard. And, interacting with a keyboard and a mouse is absolutely not easy, even for whoever that never did before. So think about for the older generation that have to learn how to do it with all the processes, starting up a machine, booting a machine, very complicated. Now this transition of first tactile experience, that it's somehow leveraging our cognitive capabilities, is transitioning to another layer of cognitive capabilities, which is talking and listening. So the voice is becoming, and again, it's a very old technology, by the way, developed by boomers, again, which is becoming now far more popular, and it's helping us to command and interact with the technology around us using simply our voice. So commanding through the voice, and think about the digital assistants that we have around, or leveraging a computer through your voice. So asking in a natural language something to something which is connected, but it's there, you don't have to do nothing. I think it's absolutely empowering us to have far more easy access to this technology. Now, what this type of interaction is bringing? A lot of opportunities and some threats. The opportunities are those that are just expressed. So there is the chance to interact, to get more, to be also, when we mean cognitive, we're leveraging that's important stuff. You mentioned the fact that we can interact via video with our relatives or our friends, and this type of human interaction, I think it's absolutely powerful. It's leveraging sight and voice, and somehow there is a sort of an empathy that, by the way, as an Italian, I'm using my hands as usual, but you can see this empathy. You can feel my Italian background because we're just doing through the video. With the audio, probably you will miss something, except again my bad accent. But there is some threats on the other hand. These technologies somehow are interacting with us, literally leveraging our voice, leveraging our gestures, leveraging our face. So the power of the artificial intelligence behind the machine learning that are enabling the models to understand how I'm acting, how I'm moving my hands, if I'm smiling or not, if my voice is trembling because of emotion or just because I need to drink water. All these are data that somehow this technology can understand. And this brings a way on how you treat these data, which are very personal, because this is basically my footprint. The way I'm talking, you can do a lot of voice reco in terms of security. So you can access to your system just because the system is able to recognize your pitch of voice, your tone of voice. Then you can do a lot more. And you can do it as usual, positive or negative. Along COVID, there is an interesting application, I guess, Cambridge University, which is leveraging your phone. And when you talk in your phone, they can understand if you're developing COVID, just listening on how you're talking or how you're coughing, for example, and if this is a COVID cough or it's a normal cough. And you see how cognitive computing is so powerful to let us understand this thing. But in the same time, I can learn a lot about yourself. You know that to be activated smoothly, these devices are always listening. So if until you don't use the magic word, Alexa, Google, Hey Siri, where these things can be activated and gives you an answer, but he's keep on listening or waiting for you to say the magic words to activate it. So this permanent listening is basically accumulating data. Now, it's critical and crucial that whatever company working in this technology, even more when it's dealing with the older population, is doing it in an ethical way, because the risk that we have of having too much information that can be misused, it's really too high. So it's time that also, as soon as we develop technology, we develop ethical principles that have to be wisely and widely shared between the society, are part of whatever we do in developing innovation.
Just finally, we can't stop aging, no matter what the beauty products tell us. So there are all these opportunities out there for us to change society's life, change our own lives. But how do you get people to care?
So yes, obviously our mission is to live as long as possible, and it's not you and me telling so. It's the history of medicine that is trying to avoid people to get ill and then die theoretically. So the purpose is just to how we can live as long as possible in a healthy way. I guess this key word is healthy way. It's not a matter to survive 200 years and be attached only to machines. It's just to be proactive, let me say, preserve your dignity. And each one of us has his own idea of what is dignity, what this dignity means to me or to you. You know it. I don't know what is your frame of dignity, but I'm very sure I know very well what is mine. Okay, so how we can preserve that dignity. And it's a matter of a combination of factors. So if we get rid of all the let me exercise of research and medicine, which is basically looking on the bio aspects on how we can live longer in a healthier way, there's for sure a societal point that it's how we can care about ourselves and others around ourselves. So there are a lot of things that are happening around us, and social isolation is one of those. Please be aware of the fact that it's being isolated or lonely, which are two different things. It doesn't hit only the older adults. On the contrary, it hits far more the younger generation. That's what research tells us. But it's obvious that when it happens to older generation, sometimes the chance to be, let me say, re-engaged in the society are probably lower. So that's why it could hit even more. And that's a matter of how we can care for a longer life. So it's not only a matter of living longer life, but living meaningful lives that then can help us to live longer lives. Because we're full of research that are telling us that if you have purpose in life, you can literally extend your lifespan because you have a mission. And the mission sometimes is related to the word work, because work is our contribution to society. So it's not only a matter of earning money. but it's also a matter of what I can do to improve the world I'm living in. And that's why in Japan, for example, retirement is such a critical moment in the life of the people, because it's a moment in which they're stopping their contribution to society, which is one of the missions that we have as human beings. So be part on how we can make this place better for us, and coming back to the greater point, for the others.
Thank you so much. Nick Palmarini,
Fantastic.
blown my mind again. Thank you. Well, I hope your notebook is as full as mine. We've barely touched the surface of what we've got coming up today as well. And as I said earlier, a lot of people are able to join us this year because we're virtual. But like last year, there's been a real rush in our call for papers. So we've a whole host of Dynamo members speaking throughout the conference. And to give you a flavour of the subjects, we've got automation and service delivery, digital construction, cyber, data, fintech, skills and workforce culture, VR and digital entertainment. And alongside all of that is a new stream for 2020, resilience. It's going to look specifically at the role that the tech sector is playing in recovery from COVID and the impact that that could have on people and companies. Now, if you're one of those speaking virtually, one tip I'm sure you've heard is to ditch the socks and the slippers, put your shoes on, get yourself in the zone. Something I wish I'd learned before reading the TV news. Always in stocking feet. You pedal the auto cue under the desk. Classy. Now, I remember last year taking a zip between each room to try and get to all the breakout sessions I wanted to dip in on. But now you can do it just with the click of a button. The afternoon breakout sessions are at 2:15, 3:35 and 4:25. The first one's now though, about 10:15, should be. On the menu is the wonderfully named Dirty Money, the case against cash. Also, we've got how to diversify your technical workforce. We have Help Me, Help You, XR applications brought to life, and develop your business resilience strategy, survive and thrive in an uncertain world. So if you head back to the reception area, you're going to find all the virtual rooms to enter there. I'll see you shortly.